welcome to episode 111 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, and I'm your host this week, and I'm joined by three other RPG Fan staff members to talk about a very special topic, starting with Hilary Andreff.
Hello, everyone.
Also, Alana Hagues.
Hey, everyone.
And finally, RPG Fans' creative director, Mike Salbato.
Hello.
We got both Mike S's on the podcast this week, so it's going to get real confusing when people try to throw the word Mike around. We have a very special topic for you today, and that is Memoria Final Fantasy. Now, Mike, you were sort of the architect of the site version of this, so I'll have you speak on it a little bit. We're in the middle of our long month-plus Final Fantasy anniversary feature on the main website, and one of the sub-features of that big feature is Memoria, where different RPG Fan staff members share personal stories about their experiences playing Final Fantasy games over the years. Is that a fair enough assessment?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, this is an interrogation, Mike. It's all good.
Oh, sorry. I haven't done a podcast in a while, okay? I need to listen up here.
No, it's cool. So anyway, we're doing sort of a mini podcast version of that feature. Can you sort of describe what the site version of the feature is first before we get into our own stories? Because it's really gorgeous, and you and Steph have done a really good job with the layout and the artwork of the feature. So can you talk about what the design of that is a little bit, the website version of Memoria?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of did. That really was. I don't remember who came up with the idea initially, but it was just like we thought, let's have a list of every Final Fantasy game, if possible, or at least a bunch of them. Luckily, we managed to get like all 15, and we said, here are the games. Anyone who has like an interesting story or a memory about any of them can write something. So we just capped it at like 2 or 3 per game, so no one got too overwhelmed. And luckily, outside of Final Fantasy XI, most of them were pretty easy to get people to sign up for. Thanks to Derek, who's one of our few people on site who did play 11, we even got 11 covered. So it wasn't like meant to be any kind of review or like a critical look at it. It was just really is pretty freeform. People could write whatever they want. Final Fantasy VI won't be up by the time this comes out, but it's one of my favorites because it has a really interesting combination of like a really, really heartfelt story from someone and then the complete opposite right after that.
Yeah, there's a really heartfelt one, and then the sort of jokey one, and then the FF6 bit I wrote was sort of a slightly technical look at one of the boss fights in the game. So it really does run all the different stories in Memoria do sort of run the gamut of what kind of memory and story you can share about these different games. But we're going to do a slightly truncated version of that feature for this podcast. I should mention the feature didn't roll out all at once. Please correct me if my details are wrong about this. Every week on Tuesday, we're going to release the Memoria segments for 2 Final Fantasy games. So
sometimes.
Okay. So
we're posting.
Go ahead.
We're posting parts of the feature on every Tuesday and Friday. So Some weeks we'll have Memoria on Tuesday, some on Friday. We might have some on both days, some weeks. But you just have to come back every week and see what's new.
Right, yeah, but it's not running out all at once. I know when it launched, it was only the Final Fantasy 1 and 2 stories, and it's just going to be adding incrementally every update. And the updates stop in the first or second week of January, right?
Right.
Cool. So yeah, that is a month and a half or 2 months of Final Fantasy features over and the RPG Fan website, and with the Memoria feature starting in late November and updating throughout that time period. And here on Retro Encounter, we are doing 4 Final Fantasy episodes in a row in late November and early December, and this is the 3rd of those episodes, which they've been a lot of fun to record. We have had a bunch of different RPG Fan people record them with us. And including Alana, you hosted the Final Fantasy IX episode a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I did. It was a blast. Been really well received as well. I'm really grateful for everyone's comments for listening and sharing the Final Fantasy love because we went crazy on that. We just completely were like, here we go, we love this game. Let's talk about it for nearly an hour and a half, I think it recording time was.
Yeah, I think when you and I
But
did
yeah,
FF6 last year, we were under an hour, and we just couldn't get you, Steph, and Keegan to stop talking about FF9. It was really fun to listen to.
yeah, it was a really good one to record. Very enthusiastic people. But yeah, really great. And obviously from the podcast, I said that nine's my favorite, and nine is still my favorite 2 weeks later. So no changes. But yeah, really great. And I'm really enjoying the content that we're producing on the site. Obviously, can't say much, but it's really good. And the stuff from Memoria, we've already had some really nice comments about, and really looking forward to see how everybody else reacts to all of our additional work as well. So please carry on tuning in and listening to this podcast as well.
Awesome. And I should mention that Hilary, who I think you did add to the Memoria feature a little bit, but your main role on the website is as one of the chief proofreaders, and you must have edited and proofread 50,000 words over the course of this feature, and you are a superheroine for having done so.
Oh, well, thank you. It was a lot, from my perspective, it was a lot of fun, especially Memoria, actually, because we got a great selection of memories, especially for the ones where we had a lot of people contributing. It was a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different things that people focused on. So it was a blast. And we have a lot, same thing with our longer kind of individual features as well throughout the time. So keep coming back because there's a lot of really interesting stuff to read.
Very cool. So, I guess let's get started with the podcast proper now, instead of just plugging each other and patting each other on the back. We don't need to be this self-congratulatory on the podcast.
Well, we do need to do one more thing.
Oh, okay.
It's not really self-congratulatory because she's not here, but we should talk maybe a little bit about Stephanie's artwork.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, my
Definitely.
God. It is all so good.
Yeah, Steph is she's one of the social media mavens, as everyone knows, but really what her true talent lies in is her art, and we've seen more of it than you guys have seen, but it is absolutely gorgeous. Again, so much really positive feedback from everybody, and deservedly, because she's a talent, and really, really good stuff like that needs to be celebrated. She's one of the unsung heroes on the site normally, but this is one place where she gets to finally show everybody that this is what I do, this is what I love, and she's fantastic. So massive hats off to Steph. We all love her here.
Yeah. When we started putting the feature together, we didn't really have everything figured out because originally, like I said with Memoria, we wanted people to just write whatever they wanted. And at the very, very beginning of the feature, that was kind of how we approached the entire thing. It was really like, hey, who has something to say about Final Fantasy? And at the time, Stephanie started putting some artwork together, and it was going to be, I don't know what the plan was on her end. Like maybe she was going to do a few things. And the more the features started taking shape, I asked her, it's like, what are the odds that we can get all 15 Final Fantasy games? Because I knew she was doing some. And even at that point, we didn't know where they were going to end up on the site. But luckily, Memoria took off, and we knew that we were going to have all the games covered. And then if she could do artwork for all of them, then all the better. And yeah, it looks like it's working out pretty well. And I'm really, really happy with everything she's done. She's quite a talent.
Yeah, Steph is a very talented artist, and she has a ton of artwork on the feature, and we all love her, and you should all follow her on Twitter and other places. She's Dice SMS on Twitter. So maybe now we should start podcasting about what this episode is ostensibly about, and that is our own personal Final Fantasy stories, but not exactly we're not exactly going to parrot what's on the FF Memoria feature on the main page. We're just going to wing it a little bit, talking about the Final Fantasy games one by one, and our favorite memories or our impressions or something like that of each one. We're not in some kind of rating or ranking or critical examination of these games. It's going to be just personal stories and reactions to each one. So maybe a bit of a preview for next week, because we are doing a Final Fantasy I episode next week. But Final Fantasy I, who here has played it, first of all, in some version or another?
I'm still in the first town.
Okay.
But I played it.
I have played it. Yeah, I played it a long time ago. I played the GBA remake, the Dawn of Sorrow, Dawn of Souls. Yeah, Dawn of
Yep,
Sorrow,
Dawn of Souls.
Castlevania.
Hmm.
Yeah, my memory
There
is
are souls in Dawn of Sorrow, but no, we're talking about Dawn of Souls.
Isn't Dawn of Sorrow Final Fantasy 2?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've played it and beaten it just a long time ago. Whenever those two came out on the joint cartridge. But as I say, I don't really have any particular attachment to the first Final Fantasy because it is kind of bare bones RPG, I guess. But I suppose the one thing that sticks with me is if this is the first RPG you've ever played, which for a lot of people it probably was. You've got the transformation sequence when you go up
Bahamut,
to
yeah.
Bahamut.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that was something that really stuck with me because you have to, for people who don't know, the original Final Fantasy, you have to pick 4 base classes. Don't pick 4 white mages, but if you want to make it really hard, pick 4 white mages. But you get to a certain point in the game where you get to upgrade these classes, and it's kind of another level of progression, which I think probably would have blown a lot of people's minds at the time because, you're going up by levels and things like that. And Dragon Quest had already come out at that, about a year earlier. So seeing a different form of progression in an RPG from 1987 is really cool. I just remember how awesome it was seeing my Black Wizard for the first time, and I was like, he's got a face. He's a man. It's not just a black orb under the hat. Like,
I
yeah,
wonder if he
nothing
took off
gets
his hat and then gave it to the fighter, because the fighter gains a helmet when he becomes a knight.
It
he does.
transformed.
So I guess
He wizard.
sometimes taking off your hat makes you stronger. Sometimes putting on a hat makes you stronger. Yeah, that's very
If
interesting.
you're a bard, it's determined by size. The bigger the hat, the more powerful you are. Usually.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I get it.
totally. Style.
And for a thief, I mean, the more you cover yourself up, the more powerful you are. So, like, when you're a ninja,
course.
you only show your eyes. That makes you super strong.
If
But-
you have dogs as well, it makes you even better.
Yes. It makes you the best.
Ninjas should have more dogs. I agree.
One other thing I think I want to contribute about FF1 is I didn't actually get the chance to play it very much, but just how much it sort of stuck around in the RPG kind of cultural lexicon. Like one of my strongest memories attached to FF1 is actually reading the comic 8-Bit Theater when I was a lot younger.
Ah,
Oh, I love that
Yes.
comic.
with
Yeah,
that
and it
the homicidal black mage and
Yes.
the dumb fighter with sword chucks.
Yes.
And a very clever Kurt Vonnegut reference with a red mage casting Ice 9.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I had actually just read a bunch of Kurt Vonnegut when that one came out, so I was super excited. But yeah, that is one of my big memories with it, and it does kind of loosely follow the plot. So I learned a decent amount of what happens from it.
Yeah, although I will say that Princess Sarah has very different character arc in 8-Bit Theater than she does in the game properly.
She sure does.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think we don't need to go into it in great detail, but just fans out there, if you want to read a very strange interpretation of Princess Sarah that's different from FF1 or FF9, maybe read 8-Bit Theater. That is one thing I'm not sure we're going to discuss on the FF1 podcast. But I'm with you both of them. I did enjoy 8-Bit Theater when I first read it as a teenager many years ago, and the Bahamut transformation scene in FF1 is awesome because like seeing tactile is the wrong word, but seeing the visual representation of your characters getting stronger is so cool, and probably a bit of a mind blow if you're at the right time and place when you're first playing FF1. I did play it for the first time when I was, I think 7 or 8 years old. I had played FF2 at a friend's house, but then I went and I wanted to play more RPGs, but I only had a NES, so I bought Final Fantasy I and rented the different Dragon Warrior games. And it was not what I expected. Going from FF4 to FF1 is a bit of a step down.
Yeah.
And only one character transforms in FF1. And I mean, if you know me, you know I love transforming superheroes, so...
That's true.
Yes,
You too.
it's true. But I never finished the NES version of FF1. I did get it later on GBA and PSP. I skipped the Origins PS1 version for whatever reason. But it holds up pretty well, or well enough for me to play it twice. But I don't know. For me, the standout moment is just the nonsense at the very end. How the first boss of the game is also the last boss of the game, except he's a purple demon, and he went back in time, then forward in time, or he went back in time, then sent the four fiends forward in time. It is so confusing.
Well,
Like
I Garland will knock you down.
yes, he will. That is the easy part to Garland. The confusing part to Garland is at the very end when the game suddenly becomes a time travel story and maybe kicks off the trend of Final Fantasy having out of left field villains come in at the last hour or two.
Ooh.
Mike, what are your thoughts on the first town of FF1?
I don't really have many thoughts. I mean, to be fair, I've left the town and I've done some battles because I really did want to join you guys in the Final Fantasy I show, and then it just didn't happen. But I don't know. That's all I did. I leveled up. I tried going a little further, and I almost got killed. So I went back and fought goblins some more, and that's where I am. So
that is a pure, unadulterated FF1 memory, if I ever.
Yeah. I mean, it looks nice. I'm playing the iPhone version.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess is just a port of the PSP one.
You know,
back when I thought they were going to port, all of them to look like 1 and 2 and 4, and I'm still sad that they have not.
Yeah, Square Enix has done a bunch of iPhone ports of FF and Dragon Quest games over the past couple of years, and I haven't tried any of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to play 7 on a touchscreen because I've seen what the button layout looks like, and I think there's too many buttons for it to work well. But for the simpler games, it works fine.
So let's move a little bit forward with Final Fantasy II, which is also an NES Final Fantasy game. The rest of the world did not get a translated version of it until the PSP remake, and oh boy, I mean, it was designed by Kawazu, the architect of the Saga series, among other things, and it has those Saga touches of dealing damage has your strength go up, taking damage has your HP go up, a little bit like some Western RPGs like Elder Scrolls in that regard, I guess. But it does have a pretty serviceable story for an NES game of that time, I suppose. But I don't have very many fond memories of FF2. I found those gameplay mechanics a little frustrating, and maybe my favorite thing might be. Wait, has anyone here played any of the remakes of FF2? Either the iOS, PSP, or GBA versions?
No.
Only the GBA, and very briefly.
Did you play the extra dungeon after you beat the game?
I didn't beat the game. This is one of the Final Fantasies I haven't beaten.
Well, it does a kind of a cool thing in the remakes that I think is maybe more interesting than a lot of the rest of the game. But 3 characters that join you during the game die at various points. You have the 3 main characters, and then your 4th spot is by a rotating cast of guest characters, and they leave your party either because they have to leave or they die or whatever, and eventually you get a lasting 4th one that goes to the end of the game. But in the remakes of FF2 from GBA onward, you can do an extra game, an extra dungeon that is set in Hell, where the characters that have died in FF2, the main game, team up to right some wrong going on in Hell, which I thought was a very amusing touch.
That is a good touch. Yeah, that is a good touch.
It's a lot like those other dungeons in the FF remakes, where they just change settings at random and they're sort of poorly designed dungeons. But it was a cool little reference it was nice to see Minwoo and Ricard again in those guys. So yeah, spoiler alert, those 2 dudes die.
Well, great. Now I can't even play it because now I know that.
Oh, God.
It's true.
I was just about to.
It's okay. Minwoo's in Theatrhythm, so it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to enjoy Final Fantasy II's world, maybe just play Dissidia or Theatrhythm instead. Because both of those are fun. Or Record Keeper, sure, yeah. When we were signing up for Memoria Stories on the site feature, no one picked FF2. So Rob Fenner decided to, write a meditation on it because no one else was interested in talking about it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if anyone hasn't read it yet, that is a good write-up.
Yes.
I don't want to out him on this podcast since he's not here, but he did ask me. I read it through and told him, it's like, hey, I really liked your write-up on 2, and he's like, are you sure? Because it did kind of go off topic, but I think he told an interesting side story, and it all came together in the end. So it's definitely worth reading. So go check that out.
Who among us has played some version of Final Fantasy III? The NES or the DS or PSP or PC remakes?
I played some.
I've played some of 3. It's another one. It's one of the, as well as 2. It's one of the other ones I haven't finished. There's only one other game I haven't finished in the series.
I've beaten all of them 1 through 10 plus 12, but basically nothing after 12.
Yeah,
I have beaten 3. I played it and beat it on the DS.
That's how I played it.
Yeah, I played the DS version. I'm not a big fan of 3 at all. I really don't like it. I don't know what it is about it. I I might go back and play it because at the time I played it, I wasn't a big fan of job systems.
I
But now I'm
love
not.
job systems, and I
I
I,
know you do.
I respect threes as a prototype to fives,
Yeah.
which I adore. I love the job system in 5, but
Yeah.
threes is all right, but
Yeah.
it has hangups about it, and it has the weird magic slot MP system that the NES FF1 has, and I don't love that.
Yeah, I think what maybe put me off is the punishment system you get. So the one thing I like about job systems is ones that let you try everything out, but 3 on the DS punishes you for doing that, so it reduces your stats for a period of time if you swap jobs.
Yeah,
And that's
you have to
the
fight like
biggest
5 battles just for the stat penalty to disappear whenever you change jobs, which is
it's ridiculous. It just puts off the idea of wanting to customize. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just stick with these 4. But that's not the idea. Like 5 demonstrates perfectly, which is the other one I haven't finished. It doesn't punish you for it. It's like, yeah, you have millions of jobs to try out. Here you go.
yeah, it encourages
Um,
experimentation rather than punishing you for experimentation. And
exactly. Oh,
and plus
sorry, go on.
in FF3 anyway, I just when I discovered that you could dual wield without penalty in that game, you don't like have to be a ninja or something. I ended up just I think my final party was 3 heavy classes, like I think 1 knight, 1 dark knight, and maybe 1 Viking or something, with all of them just dual wielding swords and katanas and axes, and then 1 white mage to heal them. So it was a lot of just very janky political polygonal sprites doing the animation over and over, which I found very
Yep.
satisfying.
I've
But
I've seen playthroughs of that.
so yeah, but I only played it. I only finished it the one time on the DS, maybe probably 10 years ago, whenever it came out. It was pretty soon after it came out when I played it. And my lasting memory from FF3 is how grueling that final dungeon is.
Evil.
It's basically you have your save point, and then you have to go through a small castle, then a big castle, then a nonsense crystalline void, uh, whatchamacallit, gauntlet that with 5 bosses in it, and no save point from outside that first castle all the way to the end boss, and
Ugh.
it is grueling if you aren't prepared for it. And I wasn't prepared for it, and I definitely lost several hours dying resetting before finally beating the game.
The only other thing I would bring up is the status effects. Like at least near the beginning of the game, I got way behind because I did not anticipate the appropriate spells for status effects to actually get into some of the dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I don't remember that being that brutal, but it's been so long since I've
I
played
do.
FF3. It's
it wasn't brutal. It was mostly between kind of me wanting to switch classes a lot and that happening. I think that,
oh
that made me a little bit impatient.
Yeah, I think you can tell why it didn't come over here immediately when it was released, or why it took so long to come, and why they've remade it.
so I guess are we ready to close the book on 3 and talk about the Final Fantasy games that we all remember fondly?
Yeah,
Yes.
I
probably.
think so.
About the
All
only thing
right.
I can contribute to 3 is all the Final Fantasy 3 content in 14.
And
Oh,
there is
Oh, of
I
there is
like that
course,
stuff.
yes.
yeah, there is a
That
fair
is
amount of that. Is that the Crystal Palace?
The Crystal Tower, yeah.
Tower, yes,
Crystal
right.
Tower and then
Mhm.
World of Darkness.
Mhm.
So now let's talk about FF4, a game that was my first RPG. It is the Final Fantasy game I have played the most, and that's not because it's my favorite. It's because every time it comes out of the new system, I buy it and replay it, and mathematically that works out to me having played that damn thing 7 or 8 times. But
God.
it's a classic. There's a lot of cool turns and characters in it. I think the music and the setting is very memorable. And one of the characters undergoes a character transformation while literally transforming, which is a nice touch. And perhaps a reference to FF1. So, I mean, I'm assuming all four of us have played FF4. Maybe that's an unsafe assumption.
No,
well, I have.
Yep,
Okay,
I
cool.
played it and finished it.
So, I mean, Mike, you didn't have a lot to say about the 3 NES ones. What's any lasting memory of FF4 that you have?
Oh, I have lots of lasting memories of 4. It wasn't my first RPG, because my first RPG was Dragon Warrior, because back in the day, for some reason, they were giving it away for free with Nintendo Power. I don't know why. I know a bunch of people that got Dragon Quest because it was Nintendo Power said, here it is, it's free. So why not? And I think I finished the game, but I don't know. I don't think I liked it enough that it pulled me into RPGs, but the game I liked enough to really start playing RPGs was Final Fantasy IV. And I remember back in, I think I was 10 when it came out, and trying to scrape together like $50, $60 or whatever it was to get that game was interesting. But yeah, I love 4. Actually, the whole sequence with Cecil and his whole redemption thing about being a paladin, that's what started my interest in like paladins and other games, and that's why it's the only class I play pretty much in an MMO or basically any game where you can choose a class. I choose paladin, and it does stem from Final Fantasy IV.
That's cool though. I like the paladin class, and I think Cecil is the most memorable of that class. He's not. They don't stick to his design very much, though, do they? Because the paladin in 14 is kind of like the traditional paladin, whereas Cecil's got like shoulders out, a see-through cape, long flowing locks,
Right.
and
With the
gorgeous
circlet. With the circlet.
Yeah, with a circlet, exactly. He's also a half moon man, so it's fine. It's
Right.
acceptable.
Clearly, that's why. If you're a Lunarian paladin, that's how you dress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cecil's
So,
a very special sort of paladin.
Yes.
yeah.
But, I mean, if there's a memorable character in that game to me, it's probably Kain. Because
Yeah.
he betrays your party, I think, probably at least 2.5 times.
I mean, he's pretty
At
much
least.
he's like the traitor for like through 2/3 to 3/4 of the game, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And then he like snaps out of it. He's like, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Kain is like the first. I don't like. When I was a bit old. Well, I say I was a bit older. I played 4 about 15 years after it came out, maybe a bit longer. So I was going through my kind of I like all these dark characters thing. And so Kain was broody, and he was exactly what I needed in my like pre-teen years. I was like, or like my teenage years. I was like, yes, Kain. Cool.
Yas, Kain, yas!
Embrace the darkness.
Yeah.
Can I get a Kain shirt at Hot Topic? Can I?
Yeah, of course.
I remember, I mean, I was, I guess in the age 8 to 10 range when I first played 4, and I thought that he was the coolest character by far, and, because I guess he's probably the first anti-hero sort of character in Final Fantasy, and, I mean, he's stylish and cool, and he jumps on dudes, and is awesome. So, of course, Kain is super cool. And I think that maybe the one interesting thing about the After Years sequel to FF4 that probably shouldn't exist was that part of the story of that is Kain went to Mount Ordeals to try and become a better Dragoon or something, but he fails at first, and his mirror version escapes and starts causing a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I hate the After Years.
Yeah, the After Years is terrible, but that's like the one good idea the After Years has.
It's like, you remember how easy Final Fantasy IV was? No. Like, 4's, well, say, I overestimate. 4 isn't silly easy. It's pretty easy for its time, I would say. But the After Years really, really went overboard. That was unnecessary.
It's like every part of the After Years is as hard as the Magnet Cave and the Path to the Core in FF4.
Oh yeah, that was a pain.
Those are the two painful parts that I remember the most clearly.
Yeah.
FF4. Kain's cool. Cecil has a moon tiara.
Yes.
He does.
Do we have any other
And lots
thoughts?
of people die.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they almost all come back.
Pretty much.
I was going to say
it's
that.
not
Yeah.
remakes, so-
Yeah, like people are sort of die and come back, or leave and come back to your party, kind of like FF2, but with much more recursion, and no one dies permanently except for Tella, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's right, yeah.
I was going to mention some of those side characters because most of them I like a lot. Like Yang and Thalam and Porum and even Sid.
Yang is a man's man.
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
The only thing that can really set him down is if his wife hits him with a frying pan.
Right. Because she's awesome and she can.
And how frustrating is it that Tella learns basically every spell in the game, but only has 90 MP, and Fire 3 costs 30. Fire 3 costs 30 MP, and Meteor costs 99 MP. It's like, come on, this is too tantalizing. He's just gonna be huffing ethers nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wish that. I guess it depends on how you play. Like if you don't level up too much, maybe it balances out. But like the way I would play, he was always way short on MP compared to everyone else. I kind of wish they had done a different system. It's like, can you just make it so it costs like 199 and he has 190? Like just a little bit more?
Yeah.
That is almost literally what they do with Fusoya, because he joins you later and has all the white and black magic, but he has about 190 or 200 MP, which is much more palatable than the Tella version.
Yeah.
Much more, yeah.
Yet Fusoya, who I think is about 90% beard. while Tella's perhaps 40% beard, Fusoya just goes all beard all day.
Well, you know how like bards' strength are measured by their hats, black mages' strength, or mages' strength are measured by their beards.
Maybe Rydia should have grown a beard, and then she could have had all of her white magic back.
Rydia is a summoner, though, specifically.
So Rosa should have gone beard. Rosa should have gone beard.
There we go.
Exactly.
Yep.
There you go.
There's some visuals I never needed in my life.
It's too bad we didn't show this theory to Steph, so she could have had it in all of her FF4 artwork.
Rosa with a flowing beard.
Yeah, Rosa with a flowing beard casting Meteo and Bahamut at the same time.
Oh.
You're welcome for that imagery, listeners. So, okay, I think if we're talking about bearded Rosa, maybe we should talk about a different Final Fantasy game now. FF5, which is a game I like a lot. It brings back the FF3 concept of character classes that you switch between, but I think does so in a much more palatable manner. Like Alana mentioned before, it's really annoying when FF3 has punishes you with stat weaknesses when you try to switch classes. FF5 lets you switch classes willy-nilly and also equip skills of unequipped classes in sort of a skill slot, allowing you to customize all kinds of stuff. Like I liked having white mages with monk barehanded skills so they could attack as strong as monks, or giving the red mage X magic skill to any other kind of mage so they can double cast black and white magic. There's all kinds of shenanigans you can pull with Final Fantasy V's job system, and really that's the most memorable part of the game for me, is experimenting with that job system. And where monks and knights that you get in Hour 1 are just as good in Hour 30 of the game. Although elementalists and beast tamers, I'm not sure. Those are as lastingly useful. So what are our FF5 favorite memories? Starting with you, Alana.
Oh, well, this is where I admit that this is the only other game that I haven't finished and I'm actually more
Alana.
than an hour. I know, but I do have some really cool... I know bits about it. I know enough. I know there's a pirate in it, so that's important. There's a female lady pirate with a really cool... Is that dragon?
It's a sea serpent, yeah.
Cool, it's a sea serpent, that will do.
Yeah, it's or a sea serpent, sea monster kind of thing. It's oh shoot, I think they call her Hydra. in the bad PS1 translation, but then Sildra later on. Sildra is the name of the sea serpent. And right at the beginning of the game, the wind dies all around the world because the wind crystal is about to shatter. But so the only way you can travel around is Ferris's pirate ship, which is pulled by her sea serpent buddy.
Oh, amazing! That is so cool.
You should play this game, Alana. It's great.
I know, definitely. I sadly tried to task by playing 4, 5, and 6 one after the other before 13 came out, and then went 4, 8, and then 13 came out. So I didn't do it right. But I do know that this game has some really cool classes, and one that sticks out to me is Geomancer from 4, 6, 5, or is it from... Or does it come from 3?
I'm not sure if it's in 3 or not. It's definitely in 5. In FF5, you get a couple more classes every time you do a sub-quest involving one of the crystals. So, like the crystal will break the the crystal will break. You'll get a handful of new classes. I think you get elementalist or geomancer around the third set of jobs. I think.
Possibly.
And it's but they're weird. They attack with bells, and
Yeah.
the terrain ability does a random skill, which is kind of like Mog's dance ability from FF6, but it's okay in that it's a 0 MP attack that can be pretty effective.
No, I just remember it for its cool design. I like the bell idea. I like weird weapons, and I should have brought it up on a previous podcast.
So Hilary, have you played through FF5?
Most of it.
Okay.
So yeah, actually, Ferris and Hydra was one of my big memories. I liked that little subplot a lot, and I always made Ferris a summoner as soon as I could. Like I leveled that up for her just because.
Yeah, you don't get Sildra as a summon until pretty late in the game, but yeah, Ferris and Sildra are awesome, and I really like the main cast in FF5, even though they don't have as much personality as the cast of 4 or 6, I feel, but Butts, Lena, Ferris, Galoof, and Kara or Karuru or Kreela or whatever you want to call the fifth one. They're a pretty fun bunch in general.
Yeah.
And I guess that if you guys haven't played FF5, there's a pretty memorable death scene around the midpoint of the game. That is better than the FF4 death scenes or FF2 death scenes.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's really impressive and awesome. I encourage FF5 newbies to give that game a try because it's a very good version of the FF job system and I think a very entertaining 16-bit RPG. But you know what was one of my memories of FF5 that actually has lasted into future FF games, but has still impressed me all the same is Gilgamesh.
Greg. You mean Greg, though?
Oh, Greg. Sorry. Greg. So, any Greg fans out there?
I am a big Greg fan. I wish I'd brought this up now. And kind of a cross memory here, but I heard Battle of the Big Bridge, Distant Worlds, and they played every single appearance of Gilgamesh in 5.
Wow. Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Because you fight him like 6 times.
You do, yeah. They showed you every fight. It was rather great. I think they even showed you. Did he get sucked into the void at the end of the game? Doesn't he?
Sort of. It's the final dungeon is the void, which is this big twisted black hole kind of spell thing. And after the 4th or 5th Gilgamesh fight, he gets dragged into the void. And then when you go into the void, you fight Gilgamesh a 5th time, and then after a little later, you're fighting a different boss, and Gilgamesh pops in to save you, and he like at the end he has a good turn and saves you from this late game boss in the void. But I mean, it's first of all, Gilgamesh is a total goofball and sort of a comedy character at times, even though his boss fights aren't exactly pushovers. But the real treat to fighting Gilgamesh is that you can steal Genji equipment from him in 4 of the 6 times you fight him, which is maybe not the best armor in the game, but among the best armor in the game for the different times you fight him. So that's a fun gimmick. He's a weapon collector. You steal Genji stuff from him a lot.
What does Enkidu in 5? Because my favorite rendition of Enkidu, because he's in 12 as well, and he's a dog. But I mean, it's really a chicken, isn't it? I mean, come on, it's a chicken.
He's some kind of gargoyle-looking demon thing in 5. In one of the Gilgamesh fights, he summons Enkidu, and for people who are fans of Mesopotamian myth, I mean, the Epic of Gilgamesh is a sort of rambling saga of a character who is 1/3 god, which is a very difficult mathematical familial equation to work out. And his best friend is named Enkidu, and so they just borrowed those names from Mesopotamian myth for Final Fantasy V and many future Final Fantasy games. Because Gilgamesh is let's see, he's a sort of quasi GF in FF8. He's a side quest character in FF9. He's a small character in the best FF side quest of all time in FF14.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's also a hunt in FF12.
Okay.
And he's also in the 15 DLC as well. The episode Gladio, which butchered him.
He's in FF13 too, or I forget if he's in 13.2 or 13.3, but I remember
he's in 13.2 is like an arena fight.
Okay, right. But that version, the FF13.2 version of Battle on the Big Bridge is one of my favorites. It's really good.
The Keiichi Okabe version from episode Gladio is fantastic as well.
Awesome.
Everyone should listen.
Yeah,
But
Gilgamesh's music is maybe one of the most lasting things of FF5. It's a really good boss fight song. Let's move on to FF6, which is, full disclosure, my favorite Final Fantasy of all time. I adore FF6. We did a podcast last year about it, Alana and I. And I could talk about FF6 for the rest of this podcast, but I won't. Instead, I'll have you guys talk about it. Hilary, you've played FF6, right?
Yep.
So what is your maybe lasting memory or favorite character, or like first thing you think about when you think FF6?
One of the first things is actually how I got it. So
Ooh,
I got
me.
introduced.
Story time.
So I got introduced to 4 first, which actually is one of my write-ups. But by the time I got introduced to it, it was hard to find. So after I got a Super Nintendo 6 was actually the first one I got. So I actually went into it with a sort of like, well, this isn't what I played. This isn't 4 attitude. And boy, was I surprised. Like, I think from the minute Terra showed up, I was super excited. And it just got better from there.
You know, that's one of the classic Final Fantasy VI like internet forum arguments that I've encountered over the years. Who's the main character?
Oh, none of them.
None of them.
None
Well,
of the above. Well,
I mean, Terra and Celeste, I would say, are joint, possibly Locke as well, because
yeah,
Locke, not thief, treasure hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before in other podcasts, but like you can make good arguments for Terra or Celeste. You can make a good argument for Locke, who's sort of like a unifying character that connects Terra and Celeste and the rest of the cast. Plus, he's the second character you meet in the game, and second playable one. And you can also sort of make a case for Sabin, because if you recruit him at the times you're supposed to recruit him, he is the character in your party the most, because he has a chapter all to himself in the first third in the game or so. That's fairly lengthy, and he's in the second half of the game when you have to re-recruit all the characters one by one. He's the first one that you find after other than Celeste. So
right.
He's mandatory. He's one of the only 3 mandatory ones, isn't he?
No, he's not mandatory.
Is he not? Is Edgar the other mandatory one?
Yeah, Celeste, Edgar, and Setzer are the 3 mandatory characters.
Right.
But you can recruit Sabin very early, and doing the Funbaba and the Sandworm stuff without Sabin is not recommended.
Oh, no, it's not.
Because like doing all of that with only Celeste sounds like a pain.
Ugh.
Oh, I want to add to this theory. You can visit his house, or at least a house that he's lived in.
Oh, yeah. When you meet him before you meet him for the first time,
yep,
you visit Sabin's empty house, and like Edgar recognizes his smell and stuff, which is that's some brotherly love right there.
yeah, it's kind of weird, but
It is.
But like Sabin's a very fun interpretation of a Final Fantasy monk. Like I really like using him, and me playing a lot of Street Fighter and a lot of SNK fighting games in the 90s made his blitz skills just easy as pie. It's like, oh, just a half circle, quarter circle, just some button tabs. This is great. Well, some of my friends are like, man, what do you mean incorrect blitz input?
Oh, I have a great story about incorrect blitz inputs too. Actually,
Wait, can I guess? Is this from the very first fight with Vargas?
No, actually.
Okay, because I didn't understand when to input the blitz stuff for him, so my first fight with Vargas lasted like 45 minutes.
Oh, god, yeah.
Because I couldn't pull off pummel because I was trying to do the pummel motion before hitting blitz. So I was just messing around the menu and like having him switch rows or something. But this is when I'm 10 and did not get what was going on at first. But tell us your blitz story, please.
So it's kind of close to the beginning of the second half of the game, right after you get Edgar back. You're in the Figaro engine room, and you have that really awful boss that can zombify you with incredibly high frequency. So I was in there, and for whatever reason, I was having a terrible, terrible blitz day. I don't know what was going on, but it was like incorrect blitz for 3 or 4 turns, which was bad. I think all of my other characters were zombies at that point, unfortunately. No, everyone except Edgar and Sabin were. And so I finally got it right. And I'm waiting, and Sabin gets zombified and hits his brother with the blitz.
oh no.
Which actually put me in a game over because Edgar was the last character that wasn't zombified.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
The classic old zombie suplex WWF's Undertaker move.
Right.
Mhm. Just for inspiration.
It is amusing to see all the various things Sabin can suplex in the game.
Mhm.
And we talked about Gilgamesh a little bit before. How about Ultros as a recurring boss?
Ultros is wonderful.
Another cameo character in the great FF14 side quest that we're definitely going to talk about in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Ultros's standout moment is clearly the opera scene where
Yeah.
Which
you
is
are
that the third
climbing
time you
over the
fight him?
top.
Fourth? No.
I believe
second.
it's the second or third, maybe fourth, but I don't remember. But yeah,
It's not
clearly the
it's
best.
the second or third. I forget which.
But it's clearly the best thing because you're climbing on top of the. I love how the sprite works in this game because Ultros is really tiny, and you're climbing all of the banners above the stage where Celeste is dancing, and Ultros is this tiny little figure, and you prod him, and he falls off in the middle of the stage, and you have to fight him to the last piece of music in the opera. It's pretty fantastic. I think he plays along with it a little bit, doesn't he? He gives out some really crazy line, like I don't remember specifics, but Ultros is a fabulous addition to Final Fantasy VI. For a game that deals with such serious issues, it really has the light-hearted moments,
It does.
especially with the PS1 translation or the SNES translation.
Oh my gosh. Also, Locke falling down on stage. That was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I love how when you're fighting on stage, the background has you see the audience members and the conductor in the background, and they all have the most
Yeah.
enthusiastic expressions on their faces.
Yeah, they love it.
They think this fight is awesome.
Oh, this is a new scene.
Cool.
I mean, this is a popular opera, I guess. I mean, wouldn't like La Traviata be improved if a giant octopus fell from the sky and fought some of the background characters? I think so.
Yeah, totally.
I think you're onto something.
I also like how Ultros is trying to shove the weight down onto the stage, and he goes, "Oh, this is really heavy. It'll take me at least 5 minutes to move this." And that's how
Countdown
you get
timer
the
starting at
timer.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean the weight itself is so it's something out of Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And it's during this like
Yes.
really big dramatic, like you're literally in an opera, and then we have this cartoon character in here for some reason. Who, by the way, how did he write a letter?
Oh yeah.
He writes a letter and like throws it and is like, come on, read it. And of course no one reads it. But I always wanted to know what that letter looked like. It's like, what did he write with? How did he write it? What's his penmanship
ink.
like?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's ink. Yeah.
That is something I had never thought of before. In full disclosure.
Bearded mages and squid ink.
Mm-hmm.
Penmanship.
Yeah.
Ultros is a mysterious character indeed. But speaking of characters, FF6 has 14 playable ones. That's a lot.
Yes,
It is a lot.
And it's
But
I think it's a little
really
remarkable
bright.
how like almost all of them have pretty good sort of side stories or quests or activities in the second half of the game. Like, I mean, even Gao, who feels like a forgettable character in the midpoint of the game, it's like, oh yeah, Gao's still with me, I guess. Has one of the saddest scenes in the game if you have him meet his dad in the second half. It's like, oh man, it's like, man, like Gao is like ranked maybe 10th out of the most memorable characters for most of the game, and then you see this scene with him, and a lot of characters have those Gao-like surprising moments in the second half of the game. So I'm always impressed that FF6 has 14 playable characters, and a solid 12 of them have really great character moments.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
well developed.
Man, Final Fantasy VI, it's so good.
That's a special. My favorite soundtrack as well, possibly.
Every
Yeah,
character has their own theme, and you get
Exactly.
to and you can and you can follow along with it. Like, why don't we see that more? Like, identifying characters with sound cues and themes works almost every time.
It does.
Like people
It's
love it in
fantastic.
Chrono Trigger and FF6 and FF7 to a lesser degree. But I mean, FF6 as a standalone game is amazing and worth playing. But I would also say the same about FF7, which is a lot of people's first RPG or seminal RPG, because it was not the first 3D polygons RPG, but like the first really important one that was extremely popular in its first window of release. Like, it's a lot of people's favorite game or favorite RPG. It dominated all those GameFAQs polls that I cared about way too much in the 2000s. And I still like it as a game, even though my enthusiasm for it is a little diminished from its first couple of years when it was out. When I played it like 3 times in 4 years or something, but I still have a lot of fond memories about it. It does that character themes thing like FF6 did, which I of course love. But have we all played FF7 here, or do we need to?
Oh yeah.
Which one is 7?
It's the one with the very good lion dog in it.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
okay. I think I played that one like twice.
And a much more annoying cat than a dog. Yeah, the FF7 cat's worse than the FF7 dog.
Oh, Kate Sith.
Cait Sith may be one of the least liked Final Fantasy characters in history, standing along many of the best liked Final Fantasy characters in history.
Which is a real shame, because the side character who controls him, Reeve, is cool.
Yeah,
I really like Reeve.
That was a really cool twist.
Yeah, when you learn about Cait Sith's twist, he's much cooler, but in the end, he's still a tiny cat with a megaphone riding a Moogle.
And I do really like the fact the Moogle stuffed doll and the cat are like, no, it's fine. We'll take the black materia and be crushed, so it's the Temple of the Ancients gets smaller and turns into the black materia. We'll do that for you. So he does have his moments, but in a game where you have a ninja and Sid and Cloud and everybody else, it's
and Vincent and a dude and Mr. T with a gun arm and a martial arts lady.
Vincent is at the peak of my dark character phase, and he's still my favorite.
Your moody hot
Vincent.
topic phase is a lot of Vincent
I'm in my hot
fans.
topic phase again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, but Vincent's really cool, and it baffles me to this day. Like, why was he a side character? Because actually, in hierarchy to the plot, he's probably like the 3rd or 4th most important character, because he was around when Hojo created Sephiroth.
And it's a little convoluted to get him. It's not like he's one step off the beaten path. You have to do this slightly annoying side quest and a slightly challenging boss fight to get him.
Oh yeah, is it missing no? Missing number? I'm doing Pokemon.
Missing number is Pokemon, but it's I think it's like it's like Lost Number or Lost Experiment or something.
It's not a complete.
No. You were close, but missing no is something different.
It is something very different. Yes. The Shinra match is a pain.
Because he was, I heard this somewhere. Like, I don't claim to know like all the history of Final Fantasy VII, but my understanding was that he was supposed to be a main character, and at some point during development, he was like relegated to a side character. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was content. I don't know if anyone knows for sure.
You say that, but once you learn all of Vincent's importance to the plot, he seems really important. It's like, oh, this is a guy who was, connected to the Turks and to Sephiroth and Hojo in a major way. Why is he optional? I think that Yuffie is a much more of a auxiliary side character than Vincent is, because you can play the game without encountering Yuffie, and the only thing that won't make sense is Wutai. You don't even have to go to Wutai.
Exactly.
And there's so much information that you get with Vincent, it almost doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Plus, he turns into the final boss of FF1, which is pretty cool.
But he gets additional dialogue at the Hojo fight scene at the end of Disc 2 as well.
He does.
So
That's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, why would you not take him? But yeah, I have lots of silly memories of 7 now being slightly more specific. Most of them have stemmed from more recent years, because this is a game that I've replayed maybe 3 times, but it's because it's like my friend's first RPG or their favorite RPG, so it's kind of the one that we bonded over. We play a game and we try and put Sid and Barrett in our party at all times, and we play the Guess the Swear Word game, which is a lot of fun. So I can't disclose any of the answers on PG-13 podcast because I would be bleeped out and all humor would be lost. But it's a lot of fun, especially if you take Sid. Take Sid with you when Aerith dies, because there's a word there and you can fit many different phrases.
Oh, jeez.
It's really fun. What is Sid calling Cloud today? It's kind of that. But I think one of the most memorable things that's popped out of this game, which is probably slightly more touching, is Red 13's character arc at the sort of
Oh yeah, when you
like
visit
halfway
when you visit
Cosmo
Cosmo
Canyon.
Canyon for the first time.
Yeah, so the scenes at Cosmo Canyon are some of my favorite anyway. The one when you're in the planetarium and Bugenhagen like shows you all the planets and how the life stream works and everything. But Red 13 up to that point has kind of just been a side character. Actually, if you are going to make another character a side character, then maybe Red 13 should be at the wrath of many Final Fantasy VII fans, because the only thing he really is involved with is Bugenhagen, and Hojo's trying to get him to impregnate an ancient, which is things we will not be discussing.
Good
like,
lord.
Yeah.
7 is a dark game.
I don't think Red 13 nor Eris was on board with that plan of Hojo's. And did he really think that they would just get turned on by being in the same cell together? Like,
isn't that what happened with Sephiroth? Isn't that how I knew
he should at least have Red 13 buy Eris a drink first. I mean, come on, it's just polite.
I know, right? But yeah, Red 13 kind of is just slightly offside character for me because he has this really nice touching arc. So he goes through the first part of the game, and then when he gets to Cosmo Canyon, he's called kind of, I hate my dad, and Bugenhagen's like, no, you need to know the truth. Gina Tark is one of the more painful dungeons in the game, because if you're not aware that everything poisons you, it is pretty nasty. There is a really easy way to do the final boss, though, and that's throw a phoenix down at it, and you'll kill it in one hit.
The old undead trick that works in many Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, Final Fantasy IX as well, it crops up in, and it's the hit rate is almost like 80-90% or something ridiculous. This it's a bit lower. But yeah.
Quick aside, another old Final Fantasy tradition is that a lot of stone enemies will die instantly if you use a soft or a gold needle on them. And that is my favorite way to level up in Final Fantasy V, because there's a dungeon from the end of the game that you can access in the middle part of the game through a certain basement entrance, and you fight nothing but statues in there. You throw gold needles at them to kill them, and they give you basically like end game experience and magic point levels at the middle of the game.
Wow, remember
that's very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, this is why we have played Final Fantasy V, Alana. Now that we know this trick, you and I can both play it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the best way to level up in the midpoint of the game. So if you do play it, just ask me about that, and I'll tell you where it is. But back to FF7.
Yeah, so Red 13 has a really touching character arc where you go through the dungeon and you find out that his dad, he's standing at the top of the cliff and he's petrified. He's in stone, and you find out that he's saved the whole of Cosmo Canyon from these Natark creatures. And I think the Cosmo Canyon theme plays as well as another piece of music, which I can't specifically remember. But it's the one bit where like the tear falls off of I can't remember, Seto's face. And Red 13 stands at the top of the cliff and he howls. And it's just one of these moments where, as a little kid, what made me cry more? Red 13's dad or Aerith's death? You pick. Definitely Red 13's dad, I would say, because that was a bit of a gut punch and made me feel for him a little bit. He's also really quick. I use him in battle a lot because he's nice and fast.
Speaking of great character arcs from characters we love using in battle, I'm a Cid kind of guy.
Yes, Cid is my go-to.
He's my favorite character in the game. When he joins you, he is this very crass, very foul-mouthed pilot whose dream was to be the first astronaut in the FF7 world, but that dream was dashed because of a unfortunate situation that takes place before the game, and basically, as I don't know if it's punishment or apology or whatnot, but the woman that ruined his dreams by chance years ago, Shara, is sort of his live-in maid at the start of the game, and watching him mistreat Shara is both tragic and hilarious.
It is horrible. They do
it's awful, but I mean, okay. When I definitely laughed when I was 12 playing this game and watching Cid go, Shara, get them some goddamn tea.
Yeah.
And then seeing it resolve in sort of the latter third of the game is very sweet, where he sort of forgives Shara and accepts her, and it's great. But I love Cid, I love Shara both, and in combat he's the only character with attack power as high as Cloud's and has just good limit breaks and good attacks. So
he has great limit breaks.
I love him as a character both in battle and in the story. Cid's great. He's one of the best Cids. So we have any other favorite parts of Final Fantasy VII, or maybe or memorable moments?
I will just also mention Tifa is probably my favorite character.
Tifa's great.
Yes,
Tifa's awesome.
she's one of my favorite monk-like characters.
She's great.
Definitely. Her limit breaks were so much fun.
One of the few times I find slot minigames quite acceptable.
Yep.
Slot minigames are always more acceptable than fishing.
FF7 rarely is the rare RPG without fishing.
Yeah, that is true, huh? I wish there was a way to find out how much time I spent on 7, because I did 2 playthroughs back in the day, and both times I maxed out the clock.
Oh
So
God!
I know I spent at least 100 hours, but I don't know how much more.
I played it,
And I know they're not that long, but
I played it 3 times between, say, I don't know, 97 and 01. It was once on the PC and twice on the PS1. But I hustle through RPGs sometimes. I don't think I got all of the content in either of them, and I definitely didn't level people up to 99 or max out the clock.
Yes.
And I only fought Ruby and Emerald Weapon in the third of those 3.
Yeah, I've only done it once, just to prove to staff and listeners how much of a badass my mum is. When she had this when I was 3 when Final Fantasy VII came out, so I wasn't old enough to understand. But my mum got maxed out Knights of the Round, maxed out the summon trick, and did the W summon for Knights of the Round, and she beat Ruby and Emerald Weapon without the internet. So, you know. My mom is quite cool. She couldn't do it now, but she's cool.
We should probably get Mama Hagues on the podcast sometime.
We should get Mama Hagues on the podcast.
That's
Maybe,
awesome.
maybe for Mother's Day we can have Mama Hagues on and talk about like the mom in Chrono Trigger and the mom in Grandia 3. But I think we're about played out on 7. So I want to talk about one of my least favorite FFs. I'll just next. I'm one of those jerks that loved 7 and did not love FF8, which is weird. I don't know exactly how common that opinion is, because FF8 is popular.
Very.
But in like certain, like jerk butt on the internet circles, FF8 was disdained by a lot of people, including me.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but
I do.
But also I was on a before joining RPG Fan, my major video game hangout was a FF6 website. So of course I would not prefer FF8. But yeah, in general, I think that FF8 has cool things, cool character designs, but I don't like the draw system, I don't like the GF system, and I think that Squall and Renoa is an awful relationship.
It's not great. I mean, I'm not a defender of 8. I
don't want this to turn into an FF8 podcast, though. That's I was just getting my opinion about it on the table. So, but Alana, you did say you played 8 pretty soon after you played 4.
Yeah,
right?
So before 13 came out, so about 2010, I really liked it. It's not among my favorites. I'll say it's probably in the bottom half. But I like the world. I like the character designs. I really, really like the soundtrack. It's an underrated soundtrack, I think. Yeah. And I argued with Rob Steinman about this, and he was like, "No, it sucks." I was like, "No, it doesn't."
No, the soundtrack's great.
It's really good and really underloved, and I think one of the first things I ever remember, and everybody remembers and raves about, is the opening sequence in Final Fantasy VIII. It is like cinema. It is incredible.
The CGI cutscenes in FF8 look stunning. They still look good. And that game came out in 1999.
They look really, really good. But yeah, Final Fantasy VIII, I'm slightly hazier on it because, I don't think much of it sticks with me. One thing it does is it takes a bit of a different leveling cue from the rest of the series in that everything levels up with you. So, you can go and kill Tyrannosaurus Rexes and they'll still be a strong 20 or 30 levels later because they're scaling with you. So it really doesn't matter what order you, like where you fight things or whenever. But in terms of specific memories, this was the first Final Fantasy game to have an actual vocal theme that isn't, One Winged Angel obviously was the first vocal track.
Are you telling me that the opera scenes in FF6 with the doesn't count as a vocal theme? Doesn't count?
No. Well, nearly. Almost does. But, in terms of, for advertisement, because obviously every single Final Fantasy game afterwards has had some kind of vocal piece. So Eyes on Me kicked off this trend of having a singer, of Melodies of Life and Suteki Dani and anything like that. But I remember the space sequence really bizarrely, the really strange CGI sequence where Renoa goes off into space because she's possessed by Ultimecia. and you have to do a really bizarre boss fight, and she floats out in this spacesuit, and then Squall floats out to her. That song is, everyone really raves about Eyes on Me, but it is like the cheesiest 90s ballad ever, and it's like it's a really terrible snapshot of my really early childhood, like music from the 90s kind of thing. But I do really like 8. I think I like the limit break system in that game, actually. Squall has a nifty limit break where you have to press buttons in time with... It's a little bit like a rhythm game, but things will dash past and you have to press the trigger button to do it.
The limit breaks are cool in 8. I don't like that you can generate them at any time at critical health.
Yeah.
Because the idea of you have to get your health low to use them is not something I like. I like it quite a bit in 7 and 9 where you build up a meter for it, and that's basically what's lasted the most. But FF8 does the FF6 thing where you can sometimes activate it if they're below a certain health amount, and I don't love that. I also don't like the selfie slots as much as the Tifa slots.
No. Selfie also is a monk who has bad dress sense.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least with her mini skirt, she doesn't have to do kicks. She fights with nunchaku, which is...
Yeah, she does.
So like she's not having to kick in the mini skirt, which is my problem with Tifa. But I mean, I think Selfie is less likable than Tifa for many reasons.
For definite. I mean, Irvine sticks out as the character who I really like in that game, just because he has a cowboy hat and a shotgun, I think. It's just another kind of... He's cool. I do have a figure of Irvine, actually, with his shotgun, so, you know. Nice. And also, Final Fantasy VIII has a good RPG dog.
That's true. Angelo.
Yes.
Yeah, very good Angelo. I think we
Angelo with a rocket.
We probably mentioned him in the RPG Dogs episode, didn't we?
I'm pretty sure we did.
So, I actually talked a little bit to some friends before coming to this podcast about some of their favorite memories. And I think my favorite one that I learned about from a friend was one of them working super hard to get to Ultimacia, it being a really tough fight, and then her finally, unexpectedly taking down Ultimacia with Angelo.
Good boy, Angelo.
Yeah.
See, that's a good dog. Killing final bosses.
Even though he probably got fired off of Renoa's like Nerf wrist launcher thing.
Yes, exactly right.
I've never quite understood how that worked.
Yeah, her weapons are quote-unquote projectiles, but they look like those toy kites that you sort of fire off by pulling a string.
Yeah.
They do. Wow, talk about a 90s toy.
Yeah, or I mean, like, going back to Sentai, several Sentai have wrist-mounted like gun things. So it's like, man, is Renoa like an unmasked Power Ranger or something? I don't know. That's a confusing weapon to explain. And this is in a series that has, you know, megaphones and hairpins as weapons from a game 2 years earlier.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's not really a memory, so I'm kind of cheating here. But I really wanted to like the main theme of 8, but I think 10 did it better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although I forget what 10's official theme is. I know 8's
it's
theme
not
is supposed
it's not to Xanarkand in 10?
No. I'm talking about like the theme of the game, because 8's theme is supposed to be love, because and I'm like, they almost got it, but they didn't totally get that.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, it's 10's I would say. Like 6's is hope. 7's is sort of a do we deserve to live like life theme.
Good politics.
And 10 is definitely sacrifice, I would say. And the theme of 5 is anti-environmentalism. You should destroy all trees.
I think it might be the other thing. I did like 8. Not.
Yay.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorites either, but it had some moments. Like I never liked the magic system. Well, I liked it the way you conjunction it, but the idea of like casting magic was like completely pointless. Because I think I got all excited the first time I got Holy or one of those spells, and I cast it and it does like 800 damage. Like, that's less than my regular attacks do. So like, I don't know. Unless I was missing something when I played it, like I didn't see any point of ever casting a spell.
No,
so I just stocked up and jumped and everything.
If you take a certain attitude with the draw cast system, if you junction your most powerful spells to your stats, then it disincentivizes you from casting those spells because they won't deal as much damage as your other attacks,
Exactly.
and your
Yeah.
stats will go down as you cast spells. Which, for me, someone who liked collecting things and wanted to max out draw casts when I was 12 or 13 in playing this game, or actually probably more like 14 or 15 playing this game, um, it it seemed it was a bit of a paradox to me. It's like, why would I ever cast spells when I'm stronger when I do this and my stats go down? So hence I do a lot of drawing and no casting was kind of my attitude. And it was just a lot of regular attacks, a lot of items, and a lot of GF summons.
Yeah. I feel like I should have played Triple Triad more.
Triple Triad is great in
Because
FF8 and great in FF14, and I have played so much Triple Triad in both of those games.
Yeah.
I know I like the game. I feel like I can never be bothered to stop and like fight people because I'm like, well, I want to play this, but I want to go and do something else. So I played it once in a while, but didn't really play it as much as I probably should have. But it is a really fun game. I think my least favorite memory from 8, not to rag on it, and it's really probably my own fault, but was the Omega weapon fight.
That's hard.
And also,
I've heard it.
If you max out to level 100, he can cast level 5 Death and instant kill your party.
Oh, that's nice.
So you have to make sure not to max level before fighting Omega Weapon.
Okay, I didn't do that. I don't know if I was underleveled. I've talked to someone who said that it was probably Scott because everything's easy for Scott. I don't know. I talked to someone who said that fight was really not that hard, and I've read online that there's like some tricks to it or something. I don't know because back in 1999,
there's tricks to it.
Back in '99, I didn't have tricks, so I didn't know what I was doing.
But step 1 is don't fight it at level 100. And then there's more tricks and strategies and skill setups that you can use that are very effective. But it's not easy going in cold.
No, it was so frustrating. Like, there's that kind of gamer that throws controllers, and I have never been that kind of gamer. That's the only thing I think I've played where I actually threw my controller once. And I was so happy when I beat him, however I did it, and I was excited to see what item you get. And you get a little dialogue box that says, "Good job," or whatever it says. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
I think you can draw some rare spells and GFs from it that were missable at earlier points in the game.
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember what the reward was. But again, I've only
Good job.
There isn't one.
I only played FF8 once.
It's a dialogue box that says, congratulations, you're the best or something, and that's it. I don't know if I can find it right now because this was a long time ago, but there is a little piece of fan art someone made a long time ago, and it's Squall wearing a white t-shirt that says, "I beat Omega Weapon," and all I got was this lousy shirt. Yeah. And that's how I felt. Although if I got a shirt, I would have been okay, but you don't even get that from them.
Oh boy.
Anyway, still a good game, even though it had that fight in it. I had fun with the game.
So that's a lot of FF8 talk. I don't know if I have it in my heart to talk about it anymore. Can we move on to a much, much better game?
Yes.
Final Fantasy IX is great. We talked about it at length on a podcast 2 weeks ago. I say we, but really it was Alana and 2 of our friends. But I think FF9 is great. It is deliberately old school in some ways and deliberately not a 16-bit RPG in other ways. I really like how each of the character feels unique, but also has this shared gem system for skills. There are so many smart design decisions in that game, and the story and characters and visuals are beautiful. FF9 is really good, guys. It's great.
Mm-hmm. It's the best.
I have an unpopular opinion.
Oh, hit me.
Oh.
I didn't really love 9 the first time through, but I could not explain why. I finished the game, and I really liked Chocobo Hot and Cold. I don't know. I'm actually playing it again. I'm liking it more now, so before anyone gets mad at me. I don't know. Like 9 and 12, for some reason, I don't know if I was just in a weird headspace or whatever it was. Like I played through it, and I kind of had to like force myself to get through the game, and I don't know why. Because I look back at 9 now, and every time I think about it, or now that I'm playing it again, I'm like, this game is really good. So I think I was really missing something the first time through, but I'm enjoying it my second time
Well,
finally.
I wish you would tell that to my best friend, the same guy that plays FF7 every year. He hasn't finished FF9 because he can't get over how much he dislikes the art style.
Oh,
Oh, here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
My
But the
favorite
art,
thing
that's
about
not
Final
me.
Fantasy
I
IX.
have beaten FF9 I think 3 times. I think it's awesome. The third one of those times was a Excalibur 2 run using a guide, and
Very good.
but I haven't played it in at least 12 years. Like my last playthrough of it was in the 12 to 15 years ago range, and it's one of
Wow.
the FF games I'm sort of most keen on replaying. But the problem is there's too many games at all times, and I don't really have a great chance to do so.
Hmm.
yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't know
I love
why
FF9 dearly.
the art style is like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but I guess in terms of realism, it's a regression after 8. Like I think it fits somewhere between 6 and 7 in terms of
Yeah.
style. So I'm surprised that that would be his main reason for that.
I think it was a lot of people's reason though, wasn't it? People just looked at it and went, "Oh, it's not real. It's not 7." I think that was what a lot of
Well,
people did
8
with
and
9
8, because 8 took it
and 8
more
as well.
realistic from 7, and then they went like a
Yeah,
different direction in 9, which is, at the time I was kind of like, I'm not sure about this, but I appreciate it now.
yeah.
Like there was a
And
reason they
also
did it on
9
purpose.
9 also went pretty much full back into fantasy, whereas 7 and 8 were like, well, 6 as well. 6 and 7 was steampunk, and 8 was futuristic. So of course, 9's gone back to fantasy. Why do we need fantasy RPGs in the year 2000? Why? Because they're
I
really
think 9 is in a
good.
similar setting to 6. I would call it
Yeah,
steampunk fantasy because
nearly. I think.
both of them have characters with guns, but
Yeah,
then I think you would call I would say that 6 and 9 are both in like fairly firmly in steampunk, but that's nitpicking on terms. But
that's fine.
I think the difference from FF7 and 8 to 9 is significant as you described, and that's part of why my friend is turned off by it. But this is something I also like about FF7. I love how the characters in FF9 are different shapes and silhouettes.
Mm,
Like because in FF4 through 6, they all fit comfortably into a square or rectangle sprite. But in
Yeah.
FF7, you have a cat riding a Moogle and a dog and characters and like Barrett is a very different body type and shape than Tifa and so on. And 9 is similar. You have these characters with very cartoony, exaggerated features and limbs and different heights, and the difference between Kina, Vivi,
Right.
Amaranth, and say maybe
Freya.
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 Yeah.
yeah,
Freya.
Freya, and maybe the most normal looking one is probably Dagger. But like all these different silhouettes and shapes, I think is fascinating and interesting, and it's a little bit boring when all of the characters are sort of the same kind of shape.
Look the same.
Yeah,
mm.
which is one thing that I didn't like about 8. It's like, oh, now I'm 6 teenagers. Where are the crazy dogs and the huge dudes with gun arms?
Yeah.
Um, but 9 has the sort of cartoon wackiness to it, but also very serious story, a very serious plot in a way, and really cool small character stories. Like you talked about Freya's character arc on the podcast 2 weeks ago,
Oh, yeah.
I did.
I agree with your assessment of how good it is.
It's
And
fantastic.
FF9's really good. Bunch of references to older games. I didn't even realize until after I beat it once that you're collecting crystals throughout the game, like like FF3 or 5. Uh,
Oh,
but
Yeah.
because they never call them crystals, they're always some magic stone or some specific thing. But really,
yeah, there were mirrors.
yeah,
Yeah,
really
you had them.
you're collecting crystals like old times. But it's
Hmm.
old school and new school in different ways that I found fascinating when I played it for the first time. And looking back on it, I think has a lot of cool, smart design decisions in it. I think Nine's really, really good. It's probably my third favorite in the series. So how much? What other lasting memories we have from FF9? Because
Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the best design of the best summon.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
always liked Alexander in 6, but in fact, was 6 his first appearance?
I think so.
Yes,
He's not in
it
5
was.
before.
Yeah.
No, it was his first appearance. He's only been in 6, 8, 9, 11, 13. He's in 12 in some form. I think he might be a ship.
Oh,
Oh
And
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should be in 15 because he would look incredible in 15.
Yes.
But yeah, Alexander is my favorite summon Esper Eidolon, etc. That sequence is incredible.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That was really when I played that as a kid. 9 is my first Final Fantasy game. It blew my mind. Like the castle has wings, and
Yeah.
Aiko is. We talked about this on the Final Fantasy IX podcast, but Aiko is one of the best child characters in an RPG ever. She's slightly irritating, but she's got that kind of edge of maturity about her, and she takes on the responsibility of being Garnet's little sister and rushing to her save her. And when they join together to summon Alexander from Alexandria Castle, which makes total sense. I didn't twig about that until like the second playthrough. I was like, oh yeah, Alex. Yeah. But oh, that's a beautiful fight scene. And Bahamut has got a very traditional design in that game, and that fight sequence is actually amazing.
I actually think Alexander was a huge turning point for me because I tried 9 when it came out for the first time, and it actually didn't stick. I had a kind of, I guess, an experience similar to Mike's, where I just sort of played for a while and was okay, but left it, actually, maybe because of other games. I can't quite remember, but I didn't get to that point. The next time I tried, I got to that point, and I think that's where I really got hooked.
I played 9 twice in a row, like right away, and then a few years later did an Excalibur 2 run. But for a while, it was my only PS1 game because I bought a PS1 in 2000. I was really into it from the beginning, locked in, beat the hell out of it, then went for a closer to 100% playthrough the second time. And so I have a lot of fond memories of getting my shiny PS1. It wasn't an original PSX. It was the mini PSONE. Do you remember the sort of that was white instead of gray?
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
With slightly rounded corners, yeah.
Yeah, I got that basically right when it came out. It was my first PlayStation, and for at least a few months, FF9 was my only game, and I had a lot of fun going through it. Hi, Retro Encounter listeners. This episode's recording went way longer than we planned and ended up at well over 3 hours. 3-hour podcasts can be fun, but it's not what we normally do here at Retro Encounter, so we decided to split this episode in half. Next week, you'll hear the panel's thoughts on Final Fantasies 10 through 15 in part 2 of our special Memoria episode. And in the following week, we have a special Final Fantasy I episode to cap off our celebration of Final Fantasy's 30th anniversary. And now for some housekeeping. Thanks as always for listening. If you want to reach out to Retro Encounter, please send an email to retro@rpgfan.com, comment on the rpgfan.com boards, or like and comment at the RPG Fan Facebook page. Also, feel free to rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Any and all feedback is welcome. If you want to get in touch with me directly, then you can find me as Monsoon on the RPG Fan message boards, Michael Sollosi on Facebook, or at The Real Monsoon on Twitter. We'll be back with more Final Fantasy stories and memories next week, folks. Thank you, good night, and good luck.